Good morning. The hearing board for the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is October 11, 2017. It is just about 9:05 a.m. and we are meeting in Diamond Bar. There is one matter on calendar for today, and that is SCAQMD versus Security Paving Company, Inc., case number 6073-1. It is for a status report and possible modification to the stipulated order for abatement. Who is representing the executive officer today?
Nancy S. Feldman for the executive officer.
Thank you. And who is representing Security Paving today?
Maya Gross for Security Paving.
Thank you. You may have noticed today we are down one board member, so we will have a 4-board member panel for this hearing. Before we begin, I'd like to ask any witnesses that might be testifying today to please stand so that I can swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. I don't know who would like to begin. Ms. Feldman, would you like to begin with an opening today?
Yes, thank you. Just to refresh the hearing board's recollection, this is a case that involved a recycling facility, Security Paving, located in the city of Los Angeles, right on the border of Vernon, that was creating fugitive dust that created what the district believed was a public nuisance at a nearby artists' colony, a community that was located right across an alleyway from the respondent's facility. The board will recall that the facility is located in a heavy industrial zoned area, and so it presented a particular challenge to all involved to devise a way to control the dust so that it would no longer impact the artist's colony while still allowing the respondent to undertake its lawful operations. And so we issued an order, a stipulated order for abatement, the primary condition of which was to comply with a comprehensive dust control plan. And that brings us to the status hearing today. We set it out 6 months. The hearing was in April, specifically so that we could have a protracted period of time in order to implement control measures at the facility and evaluate their efficacy. In particular, we wanted to wait through the summer when we know that dust complaints generally go up. So we're here to bring you up to date. The district has just one witness who will review the record of inspections that were conducted since the order was entered, and now we'll give you an overview of the complaint history and bring you up to date on the compliance status of the respondent. I know that the hearing board has become accustomed to confronting some thorny issues at status hearings regarding stipulated orders for abatement recently. And I'm very pleased to inform you that that will not be necessary here today. The dust control plan has been quite successful. There are virtually no complaints that have been registered with the district since the entry of the order, despite the long, hot, dry summer that we've experienced. The respondent has been extremely cooperative with the district's enforcement efforts and with implementing the dust control plan. In fact, the respondent has come into early compliance with some of the measures that are dictated in the plan. And so at the conclusion of the hearing, the district would propose that the hearing board retain jurisdiction until April of 2018, as is indicated in the current order, with no further status hearings scheduled unless the parties between now and then find the need to request one.
Thank you, Ms. Feldman. Ms. Gross, do you have an opening?
I would just like to echo some of what Ms. Feldman has said, that the dust control plan has been very successful, and I would add that these measures are not, small measures. Security Paving made a significant investment in the facility, doubling the man hours of the people on site, installing a comprehensive sprinkler system with timers, completing the entire wall, a 20-foot block wall separating on the east side of the property 6 months ahead of schedule. And so with these measures in place and the additional training and practices that they've implemented, it has been very successful. And they've received virtually no complaints and even some compliments from the same artist neighbors. So that's been gratifying, and I think it's been a success all around.
I think you're right. That's probably the best opening we've had on a status conference. Ms. Feldman, can you put,
Certainly in recent memory. The district will call Inspector
witness.
John Akers. Mr. Akers, if you could please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
John Akers, A-K-E-R-S.
Did you take the oath this morning?
I did.
And what is your position with the district?
I'm an inspector on the Compliance and Enforcement Division.
In that capacity, are you familiar with security paving?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the stipulated order for abatement and the conditions it contains?
Yes.
As part of those conditions, are you familiar with the requirements of what has been called the Fugitive Dust Control Plan attached to the order and incorporated into it as a requirement?
Yes.
If we can turn to that, I understand the hearing board does have in front of it a copy of the Fugitive Dust Control Plan. And I'd like to walk through each one of the measures, just so that Mr. Akers can give you an update. We can start on page 2, which is where the substantive requirements begin.
Ms. Feldman, if I just can interrupt, just for the record, and just so that anyone watching the webcast, it is actually Appendix A of the stipulated order. It was not attached, though, on the district's website, so I believe it was attached as Appendix A to Exhibit 4, was it? Exhibit 4 in the original hearing.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chairman. The first requirement is that daily inspection records shall be maintained at the facility. Are those records being maintained?
Yes, they are.
And have you actually seen copies of those?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so let's get into the actual fugitive dust control measures. The first is for track out requirements. The plan gives the facility to choose one of a menu of 6 options. Have they done that?
Yes, they have.
And which option did they choose?
The facility has an existing paved surface before the exit to the facility, and before that paved surface, they have rumble plates installed. And on the normal traffic routing, they have speed bumps installed also.
So the rumble plates are both at the entrance and exit?
Yes, they have rumble plates just beyond the truck washing station, or the washing station at the entrance to the facility, just beyond that. They have other speed bumps that are around the perimeter of the yard, and then they have speed bumps also at the exit side of the yard.
Okay, so at a minimum, they've implemented 2 of the 6, while they were only required to implement 1. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And in addition to these measures, they're supposed to have a dedicated vacuum-type wet sweeper on site. Do they have that?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Do they keep a log to document the usage of this piece of equipment?
Yes, they do.
Looking at the section titled Dust Control, the first one is for a water truck to remain on site at all times. Do they have that?
Yes,
And have you seen it?
I have.
Okay. Active roadways, work areas, and storage piles need to be watered 15 minutes prior to any activity that's capable of generating dust. Have you observed the watering of the piles?
I have observed the piles being watered, and a lot of watering going on my visits to the facility, yes.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, is this accomplished 15 minutes prior to the dust-causing activities?
Yes.
It says that all incoming truckloads must be watered with a truck spray bar or watering station prior to dumping at the site, and is this done?
Yes, they have a watering station that they've set up at the entrance.
The next is that at least 6 inches of freeboard needs to be maintained on haul vehicles, or tarps need to be used. Is this being done?
Yes, it is.
And have you personally observed this practice?
Yes.
Which one are they usually employing, do you know? Is it tarps or the freeboard?
By and large, the tarps are more common, more frequently used than the 6-inch of freeboard. There are some smaller customers, I guess, that would, where the 6-inch of freeboard would apply.
Okay. It states that all truckloads need to be covered as already required by the vehicle code. Did you have an opportunity to take a look at what that vehicle code section requires?
Yes, I did.
And to the best of your knowledge, is the facility complying with that section?
Yes, they are.
The plan requires that no later than May 30th, 2017, a sprinkler system shall be installed that covers the piles and is controlled by an automatic timer. Have they done that?
Yes.
And did they do it by May 30th?
Yes.
It says that all water applied to surfaces and materials pursuant to this plan shall be applied in amounts sufficient to prevent fugitive dust in accordance with Rule 403. Have there been any violations of Rule 403?
No violations have been observed by our inspectors, and on my visits there, the water's being applied religiously.
Okay. It says no later than April 30th, 2018, the east property line will be protected by a wall at least 20 feet in height. Have they accomplished this?
They have accomplished that. I believe the wall was completed, my observation, on October 4th. I think it was probably just a few days maybe before that when the wall was completed.
Okay. They need district-approved dust control signage posted at the facility that will provide notice to the public of a voicemail system where they can leave complaints. Have they done that?
Yes, they have.
And do you know anything about the response time to the complaints? I realize that might be hard for you to actually ascertain.
I do know. I can't really speak to that. I do know that the system does work. So I think that they are responding to complaints, but again, the complaints have been minimal.
Right. And have they logged all the complaints that they've received that you've noted?
To the best of my knowledge, they do. They have logged them all. They do keep a log.
And have they kept the records that are required in Condition 11?
Yes.
Okay. So have any NOVs been issued to this facility since the entry of the stipulated order for abatement last April?
No.
And have you had an opportunity to review any phoned-in complaints since last April?
Phoned into the district?
Phoned into the district?
Yes, I have.
And what did you discover there?
We have received 2 complaints that were reported to our system. One of those was received on April the 13th, which I think was the day after the hearing board, which met on April the 12th. That complaint was reporting fugitive dust. My review of the complaint, I wasn't the inspector. The inspector said the complaint was more generally regarding the heights of the pile, which was an issue that we covered at the hearing board last time, and the fugitive dust. And the inspector went out, and the height of the pile was verified at not more than 30 feet, which is the requirement, and no fugitive dust was observed.
And again, that was just one day after the hearing, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then about 2 weeks after the hearing board, we had another complaint for dust coming from the property, fugitive dust. This was very late in the evening. An inspector went out there very early morning hours and was not able to verify that there was fugitive dust coming from the site.
And this was before the automatic sprinkler system was installed, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other complaints?
No other complaints were phoned into the district.
All right, and since those two
Since those
last
two,
April?
The most recent that we have is April 27th, which is about 2 weeks after the hearing board met
Okay.
initially.
And just because we had questions from a hearing board member at the last hearing, have you had an opportunity to ascertain whether the city of Los Angeles or Vernon have any sort of regulations that might apply to this facility that would address dust?
Yes, on June the 8th, representatives of the district, including myself, we met with a representative of the city of Vernon, who is the city located just south of the security paving site, and they are the party that maintains the street, the sidewalk, everything just south of the security paving site up to the property fence, according to what we're told. We met with their code enforcement person, and they informed us that they were not aware of any complaints from the site. They did not have any code, being an industrial city. They did not have any code about traffic or trucks queuing, and the noise abatement would be similar to the city of LA, but they had not received any complaints about the site, which is actually in the city of LA. We, on the same day, met with representatives of the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety. We met with them and reviewed, again, the issues regarding the security paving site. And we were able to confirm that as far as noise is concerned, those things are investigated by the LAPD, which we had already informed the artist colony about, and also able to confirm that the security paving facility did not need a conditional use permit because that part of the city is zoned for that type of operation. They did inform us that the artist colony did need a conditional use permit because that part of the city is not zoned for residential use. And the artist colony did have a conditional use permit.
Okay. Including yourself, how many inspectors, if you know, have visited security paving to assure compliance with the order for abatement since the order was entered?
We have numerous inspectors that have been there. Primary would be Matt Ariano, who did daily surveillance. Beginning shortly after the hearing board met, and that continued through most of June. He was going out on a daily basis to do what we call a compliance inspection. So we were taking the dust control plan and just going through those items step by step. He did that on a daily basis. And then after the sprinkler system
I'm sorry to interrupt your, Senator, please, no phone calls at the, during the hearing. If everyone can silence their phones. Thank you, I apologize. Can you please continue? I didn't want your testimony to be lost.
Okay. So after we had verified that the sprinkler system had been installed, the daily inspections were cut back to biweekly inspections. And I began doing those biweekly inspections August the 8th.
Could I interrupt you there, because biweekly always confuses me. Do you mean twice a week or every 2 weeks?
Twice a week.
Okay.
So between Matt and I, we've done over 70 compliance inspections at the site. In addition to that, we had our night duty team going out once or twice a week, depending on what their workload may be. And they had numerous, I'm counting at least 13 stops were made in the evening to verify compliance and what was going on there in the evening.
So would you say that the district had an extraordinary compliance presence at security paving since the last hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And in all that, were there any violations of fugitive dust requirements noted?
No.
And no notices of violation issued?
No.
District has no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Quest. Do you have any questions for this witness, Mr. Akers?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Board members, Dr. Lerner.
The biweekly and the daily visits, were these planned, announced appointments set up, or this, you just drove over and looked? How did that work? Could you explain that, please?
They were unannounced. We would go by different times of day. In the case of the daily inspections and then the biweekly, twice a week, they were unannounced also.
Did you have a chance to go into the parking lot across the way at the Artist Colony? There was a lot of discussion about getting their cars washed, and then within a day or so, or the next morning, there was dust. I won't call it fugitive dust, we'll just say dust. Did you guys ever go through that parking lot and just see what was going on?
No.
This is a facetious question, but it happened, I think, with not Katrina, but the terrible storm on the northern part of the East Coast. There was a Walmart truck driving around empty, just to give people the idea that something was being done to deliver food or supplies. So my facetious question is the following. Did you ever see that water truck that was standing there, that's always there, being used?
Frequently.
Thank you.
Ms. Byrd?
And just one question. You also confirmed with respondent that they had not received complaints that you did not receive. I mean, their record was the same. Nobody was calling them.
They did receive calls independent of what the district has received. So their complaint log would show complaints that came directly to them that did not come to the district.
Do you know how many they received versus how many the district received? And I can ask them if you don't have that information.
I have a copy here somewhere of their complaint log, I think. I'd say maybe 8 or 10 complaints.
And do you know how recent their complaints were?
I had asked them at some point to include in their complaint log, even the ones that hadn't been called, the residents that came by and in person made comments or complaints, and I had asked them to include those. I would say there may be 10, and I think the most recent one, I'm still looking for my
Okay.
thing. I think the most recent one may have been as recent as last week, where one of the neighbors came by to make a few comments.
Do you know what the comments, the substance of the comments may have been? Were they still dust or? And if you don't know, I can wait. I just thought that since you were talking with them, you might have that information confirmed.
Yeah, it may be better to ask them, but I think
Okay.
they've had both positive and negative comments
Okay.
from the neighbors.
All right. Thank you.
Senator?
To your knowledge, were the neighbors notified about this meeting today?
Senator, the hearing was set in the last, at the last hearing, so members of the public should be aware.
I can tell you why I ask, if you don't mind. The fact of the matter is that they have so many people here last time, and they had photographs and film showing what the problems were at that particular site, and there was just so much interest. Today, there doesn't seem to be any.
Those same people were here when we set this hearing, because this is the date that actually is in the
Well,
stipulated
I
order.
just, it was of interest to me, that's why I raised the question. And I got more questions, by the way. On the truck out requirement, you can pick one of 6 of these processes you would use. Which one did you select?
We did not select, Senator. The respondent selected out of that menu.
Which one did they select?
He already testified that they selected 2 and 5.
Selected number 2, a paved surface,
And 5,
2 and 5.
yes.
So they have the rumble plates or speed bumps.
And they
Okay.
actually have both, the rumble
Yeah,
plates
both.
and the speed bumps.
Now, then my question to the inspector, when you inspect that facility on the roadway exiting the site, did you inspect whether or not there's any dust or debris on the roadway as it exits that site?
Yes, I did.
And you didn't see any dust?
No. They maintain the street with their street sweeper, and they do that also on a regular basis, and they keep a log of sweeping that street, and I would say the street's well-maintained.
Very good. And the dust control, number 2, work areas and storage piles shall be watered 15 minutes prior to any activity. How do you know whether or not they are complying with the 15 minutes before any activity?
Well, I haven't been there 15 minutes before they open the gates in the morning, but the operator there has told me that he makes sure that he gets there before the operation starts, and he has the capability between the watering truck and the sprinkler system that's installed to make sure that the site is prepared before work begins.
Given the fact that it's not documented, you take him at his word, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And on number 4, at least 6 inches of freeboard. Was that ever expected?
When I'm on the
Six.
site, I'm observing the activity of the haul vehicles, and by and large, those are tarped. They come in with the loads covered, they go out with the loads covered. There are cases where there's a requirement for 6 inches of freeboard, which means basically that the load is 6 inches below the railing on the side of the truck. And I've also observed that to be the case.
Very good. Now, on the number 8, at the wall, it says portable. Is the fixed wall been constructed, or is it still relying on a portable wall?
This is a solid block wall.
So it's not a portable anymore?
No.
That was temporary, I would imagine, at the time.
It was fabric and metal, I would say like a hurricane
Right now,
fence.
is that what it is?
No, it's a block wall.
It's a block wall, okay. What about these dust control signage shall be posted in front of the facility that includes a phone number and so on? Has that been done?
Yes,
Sen-
it has.
Senator, Mr. Akers just went through all of these.
I know, but I'm
and
just.
confirmed them all to have
She
been,
did, I'm just asking the inspector.
he answered. He already testified that that signage was put up.
So much. So the log of the dust complaints, you have the names of the people. That's in condition number 10. The names of the people are required, and you mentioned the number of complaints, but are the names recorded maintain it as a part of the record?
You know, that's their log for the most part. As far as the district's complaints are concerned, we do maintain anonymity of those complainants. But we have spoken with those complainants that called the district, yes. We did not speak to any of the complainants that called directly to Security Paving or that came to their gate to compliment or make comments.
So the condition that's been approved does not require that they maintain the names of the people who make the complaints?
I don't believe that's a condition,
That's at this
but I
time?
think that their log would reflect, if they had the name, that their log would reflect.
It would reflect that?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, very good. All right, now, on number 11, hours of operation.
Yes.
What are the basic hours of operation? Even though they keep a record, what did you discover in terms of hours of operation?
They keep a record of hours of operation. That can be, if they choose to be, a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week operation, and at times, I believe they may have been working that schedule, but for the most part, you know, they work according to the demands of the job and their customers.
I see, okay. Now, record of operation, 11C, daily height of all storage piles. Is there a limit in terms of the storage pile?
Yes.
And how is this measured in terms of the heights? They keep a record, or are you there to check that out?
I am there when we do the compliance inspections to verify that it's not more than 30 feet. We went out at one point and verified the heights of the stacking equipment. They have a piece of equipment called a stacker, which takes material from the crusher and creates the gravel pile. That stacker height was set at 30 feet. So it can't stack anything higher than 30 feet.
How is that 30 feet measured? How do you measure the 30
It was
feet?
measured with a tape measure.
With a what?
With a tape measure?
Oh, okay. On a ladder, huh?
No, just drop the tape from the end of the stacker down to the ground.
All right. The next question is, any breakdown of equipment, what kind of breakdowns have you discovered so far, if any at all?
None.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Akers? No other witnesses, Ms. Feldman?
No, nothing from the district.
Ms. Gross, do you have a witness?
I'm prepared to present a witness if the board has questions, and since it sounded like there were some, I will present one of the witnesses to come forward. Mr. David Woolsey for Security Paving.
You could just begin by having him state his name, spell it, and say whether he took the oath, which I believe I saw him do.
Mr. Woolsey, can you please state your name for the record and also spell it?
David Woolsey, Woolsey.
And have you been administered the oath this morning?
Yes, I have.
And could you please tell me your position at Security Paving?
Site supervisor for the 25th Street operations.
Thank you. And in...
Sure, WOOL, S as in Sam, EY. Site supervisor for 25th Street operations.
And how long have you been in this position at this facility?
I believe I started in this capacity in April, first part of April.
So shortly after the abatement order hearing?
Yes.
On April 12th? And did you work at Security Paving before that?
I did.
What facility did you work at?
I was on one of the crushers that moved around quite a
Okay.
bit.
So are you familiar with the 25th Street facility?
I am.
Okay. I wanted to ask you primarily about some of the questions that came up directed towards Mr. Akers as well with compliance with the dust control plan. Are you familiar with the dust control plan that we've been discussing?
I am.
And are you in charge of ensuring that these measures are implemented?
Yes, I am.
So are you familiar with the daily operations?
Yes, I am.
Are you at the facility every day that it operates primarily?
Primarily, yes.
So you're familiar then with the complaint logs?
Yes, I am.
Have you reviewed the logs, or do you fill them out yourself?
I fill them out myself, and I have reviewed the ones in the past.
Okay. How many complaints has the facility received, either by phone or in-person visits or other means, since April, since you've been in the position?
To my knowledge, there's only been 3 complaints with the folks, neighbors coming over and speaking to us, and none by phone.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So you have part of the dust control requirements is to have the voicemail system and phone number available. Have you received any complaints by phone, either through the voicemail system or directly calling?
We haven't received any complaints via our phone system.
Okay. But you know the phone system works?
We know the phone system works. We had one of the district's inspectors tested it one night, about 9 o'clock at night, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. He tested it.
And how did that test work?
He phoned in, left a message, and then we responded in a timely manner. Two people over me responded to those, to the test, to the message.
Okay. And that's the only time that you've received a call or a voicemail on that system?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And for the complaints that you did receive from neighbors coming over, when did those take place?
During the day, during operating hours.
Do you know the dates?
I have them on the log if I can
Yeah,
refer to
please.
that. So the first one was on 4/13, the day after the last hearing.
And what was the general nature of that complaint?
The complaint was that the pile height was over the 30-feet limit that had been set.
Okay. And do you know what action occurred? Did an inspector come out at that point? I think we heard testimony.
Yes, there was an inspector came out that day.
Okay. And then what was the next complaint that you have in the logbook?
The next complaint was on 4/27.
And what was that complaint generally?
That there was some sort of black dust that went over the fence in the early morning hours.
And so this was, yeah, late evening or middle of the night sort of? Okay.
Yes.
And that's consistent with Mr. Akers' testimony as well as we heard.
Yes.
And you said there was a third complaint that was logged?
Yes, on 5/18, one of the Art Colony residents came over and said that there was dust blowing in his backyard.
And is there an action that was taken in response to that?
We didn't observe any dust at that point in time, but on the east side, we turned on everything that we had to make sure that there was no fugitive dust, but we didn't observe any at the time he came over.
So it's within your control to be able to turn on the water more than the minimum that's in the dust control plan?
Yes.
Okay, so you can respond to those sort of things timely. Are there other complaints in the log since that time?
There is one complaint on 10/2 one of the Art Colony residents blocked our gate with his vehicle and got out and started screaming that the wall was a complete joke and it's not doing anything. And that was the last complaint that we had. And prior to that, we had a resident come over and praise us for the work that we have done. Appreciating what we had done as far as the wall and all the stuff that we've implemented.
And with the person that was in the truck, I'm just curious, what was the action that was taken? Did you talk to him or find out further anything or investigate his concern?
I did speak with him. He was just irate, so he was difficult to speak to, but we asked him to move his car away from the gate. And at that point, he jumped in his car and took off.
Okay. And did you observe dust or anything, other violations?
No.
Okay. And you said you also had some compliments. Was that one time, or are there other times that Artist Colony residents?
It's been 3 times that
Okay.
this same person has come over and praised us for the work that we've done.
And approximately when did those interactions occur?
During business hours, late morning usually is when he comes over.
Okay. And was it what month or what days?
He came over on 8/14 at about 9:10 in the morning. He came over on 8/16 at about 10:30 in the morning. And then he came over on 10/3 at about 9:30 in the morning.
Okay. So recently and during the summer months. And other than that, you haven't had other interactions with the Artist Colony or other neighbors?
No, we haven't.
Okay. Do you keep the names of the people who complain?
I do,
Okay,
when I have them.
right. And that's, I believe, what the dust control says is if the names are provided,
Yeah.
you'll log them. And you keep logs of the hours of operation?
I do.
And so, to expand a little bit on the testimony we heard earlier, can you explain a little bit about the hours of operation, how often you operate or when you operate? And
The facility is open Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then we're open on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
And, but you can, as we heard, operate 24/7 depending on the business needs of the projects that you're working on?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And so it's just, you've been logging the hours just as they generally change or as the business needs dictate?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And over the past 6 months, when the inspectors have visited, or you've been sort of under the scrutiny of the Air District, have you always been aware of when the inspectors are going to arrive?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I have no further questions for the witness.
Thank you. Ms. Feldman, do you have any questions?
Yes, just a couple. Mr. Woolsey, the first complaint that you received about the pile height, just for clarification, did you have the occasion to measure the pile when you got the complaint or shortly thereafter?
Yes, we did.
And was it over the 30 feet?
It was not.
Okay. The second complaint, you talked about that someone was complaining about black dust in the early morning hours. Did you have an opportunity to follow up on that complaint?
I believe the district did. I did not. The district is the one that brought that complaint to my attention.
Okay, and the district's testimony was that there was no verification of dust that we were able to make. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Woolsey, the third complaint on 518. And you said that you had responded by turning on all the water on the east side, I believe you said. Was that response within about 15 minutes, do you know?
Probably less than that, yes.
Great. All the measures that are in the dust control plan that are part of the stipulated order for abatement, is it the plan of security paving to continue those dust measures after April of 2018 when this order would otherwise cease?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. In terms of watering and response to complaints?
Yes.
Okay. You testified that you gave us the hours of operations generally and then testified that you can work 24/7 if necessary. Do you know, since April, approximately just how often you do actually work overnight?
There was a few weeks in July, I believe, we worked some night work, but other than that, none, as far as I know.
And I see there were no complaints during that time.
There was no complaints.
And is that usual in terms of how often generally you would work nights or past operating hours?
It's very sporadic, just to the demands of our customer and our own company.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Ms. Bird?
I just had one, and it's because I wanted to address and understand the 15 minutes before work, prior to any activity, which was number 2 under dust control. I understand there are automatic sprinklers. Is that the way that you're assuring that there will always be that watering 15 minutes before activity?
No, ma'am.
So you're actually, prior to opening, then watering, and how are you assuring that 15 minutes? I guess that's my question.
I physically start at the site at 5:30 a.m. And my first duty is to water the yard prior to the gate opening,
Okay.
and that's all documented on my water truck log.
And then the other, I know you have automatic sprinklers, but then there's manual operation when you see other activity or you expect other activity? Is that the way it works?
I'm not sure what you mean with other activity.
Well, I'm reading specifically condition number 2 under dust control, and it says these work areas and storage piles and active roadways shall be watered 15 minutes prior to any activity capable of generating dust. And I was just asking how you assured that that took place.
I physically do that in the morning when I
So
start.
that's your responsibility.
Absolutely.
And you know, there's a schedule, so you know when activity is going to take place?
Well, the site opens at 6 a.m. for business.
Okay. Right. But don't you have activity all day long?
We do.
Yeah, that's what, that's what I mean. Not just 15 minutes before it opens, but how do you know the comings and goings? Is it a scheduled coming and going that you would know so that you know to do that 15 minutes before they arrive? Maybe I'm not being clear. Maybe, do you understand what I'm asking?
I don't actually.
Okay.
Are we?
So every time, based on this condition, every time you have activity,
Yeah.
15 minutes prior, you're supposed to water. So how do you make sure that happens?
Each time a customer comes in to dump a load, that load is watered prior to it going back into the dump area. And in some cases, we also have someone on a hose back there as well who waters the material as it's being dumped out of the truck.
Okay, so that's condition number 3, the incoming loads being watered.
Yes.
I think condition number 2 is really not the trucks. It says the roadways and the work areas and the storage piles.
Roadways, storage piles, and open areas are watered continuous throughout the day.
Okay, so it's just ongoing.
It's ongoing.
And that's how you assure that
And
at
that's how I
least
assure
15 minutes
Yes.
prior? Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to follow up with one question on that. So you come in every morning and you water at least 15 minutes prior to activity and operations. Is that is that a duty that is given to whoever holds your position? So say if you were to leave the company tomorrow, not that you're planning to do so, or to change positions, someone else would take your position and it is documented that that person would water? I'm just trying to understand if it's something personal to you that you're coming in and doing it, or if it's been given to a particular position and documented that this shall happen as part of the activities of the day.
Well, it's been given to me and the entire staff at the site.
Okay,
And then when I'm not there, my counterpart will take care of those duties.
thank you. That answers the question. Anyone else have any questions? Senator?
Are you present at the site during normal hours of operation?
Yes, I am.
Is there, to your knowledge, another facility within the city that you probably, that perform the same service that you're aware of, associated with?
I'm not aware of any.
Security Paving is the only site that they operate.
Within the region that we're in, as far as I know, yes.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, one other question. On this complaint on 5/18, May 18th, it was about this backyard dust. Was that investigated?
No, I didn't go into the backyard, if that's what you're asking.
Well, but you did document that.
I documented it.
Did you share with the district that documentation
Yes, I did.
and the complaint they were making?
Yes, I did.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Lerner?
Just to follow up on that, was their backyard facing the street, or was their backyard literally in the back of their dwelling? Or you don't know?
I'm not familiar with the layout of their backyards, but from my understanding, the backyards are on the other side of their building, of their structure, on the far east side of their property, furthest away from our property.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on the senator's question, to your knowledge, the dust control plan does not, it requires you to keep a log of complaints and for the facility to respond within 15 minutes and to make that log available to the district, but you're not required to phone in each complaint as they're made to the district. Is that correct?
To
Is
my
that your
knowledge, no.
understanding?
That's my understanding. To my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Thank you very much. I'm going to ask at this time, I don't see, but anyone wish to make public comments? Any member of the public wish to be heard? I'm seeing none. So Ms. Feldman, I'm going to ask for your closing.
Yes, thank you. I think that we've shown here today that this stipulated order for abatement has been successful. The board will recall that the district had received regular and numerous and loud complaints from the artist colony prior to the entry of this order. The board will recall that the public did turn out at the last hearing. They had pictures, they had signs, they testified in significant number about the problems that they were experiencing with this facility. They were aware of the status hearing, and I think it is significant that no one showed up here today to testify, and would like to believe and have every reason to believe it's because this problem is no longer significant. And we're very gratified at the level of cooperation that we have received from Security Paving with this order. They have made a significant investment of both money and resources into making sure that the order was implemented to the letter. And as noted before, especially as regards the wall, met compliance deadlines early, and for that we do thank them for their efforts. We have no need to schedule a further status hearing in this matter. The board will retain jurisdiction over the order until April of next year, so that is still a significant period of time during which this order will be in effect. And unless there is a reason for the parties to request another hearing, we believe that this should be the end of the matter.
Thank you, Ms. Cross.
Thank you, board members. I would echo Ms. Feldman's sentiments. The implementation of the dust control plan and Security Paving's proactive accomplishment of a lot of the goals early and on time just has yielded excellent results. I mean, they've been cooperative with the district, they've been cooperative with their neighbors, and they are taking this very seriously, as evidenced by how they're operating and, of course, the significant investment. And so to have gotten through the hot, dry summer with very few complaints, including the times that they were operating at night, which, as we heard in the last hearing, was when complaints would often escalate, I think just indicates how far we have come since early last year. And so I would also state that I don't think there's a need for a further status hearing at this point, and Security Paving certainly wants to keep going forward on this productive way of conducting its operations in the industrial zone, despite the fact that there's residences nearby. And so they will be continuing to implement this to the letter and as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, I think we have clearly received ample evidence today that the dust control measures of the order are happily working very well in this case, and as we've all stated before, that is not always the case. In fact, it's not usually the case. And I believe that Security Paving has taken this order and the measures very seriously, and we appreciate that. I think the fact that the district, Mr. Akers, testified that there were only 2 complaints and they were so close to the last hearing before any of the measures were put into place, including the sprinkler system, which clearly is probably the most effective of the measures. Making sure everything is watered all the time is the way to control dust. And it seems since then, the facility has only received, I think, 2 other complaints. Since then, one of which was responded to immediately by, the other had no response to make. It was just a complaint, but the first one in May, the third complaint, in May was a quick response time within 15 minutes. And I do also echo what everyone's saying today. There was a very active, organized community that appeared before us with videos and pictures and a lot of very heated testimony. And those same people have not complained. There have been no NOVs. And they did not appear today, which I think speaks volumes as well. So with that, I would suggest that we take no action and we just, for good reason, and we hold this case, as already is the case, we hold jurisdiction through April of next year. Anyone else?
Me?
Oh,
Oh, I think,
Ms. Byrd.
go ahead.
I would agree with you. And I think that when this order was put in place, one of the things that we were wanting to have confidence in its ability to work was over that dry period of the summer. And I'm thinking, I don't know how things have been down here, but where I live, the Santa Ana winds and all that stuff going on, if you haven't gotten complaints, then I think that it's an effective measure, and I agree that we should just file this and just wait till the jurisdiction's over without hoping that nothing will come up between now and then.
Dr. Lerner.
I'd like to congratulate you. I was kind of hard on initially, and my only complaint, just no complaint about what you've done. I think it's been outstanding. It's very hard to find fault or obviously a question needs for improvement. Just keep up the good work. But my one comment is the absence of people here, which is a good sign, but there's an alternative explanation. And I think it was alluded to here, hinted at here earlier in the conversation, is that there was no real, I don't know personally if there was real public notice given of this. Now, the fact that all these people were here 6 months ago, you know, once something happens and you lose time and energy and you get involved with the rest of your life, this is settled, and you tend to forget what's going on, and you're not reminded of this because it doesn't bother you as much. But I think there should be, because this one was really a hotbed of discussion here, I think it'd be somehow important to make notice of this hearing, and I don't know if it is noticed, the way we technically do notices for abatement, if it is noticed, and I could be wrong.
It is noticed. It has been on the schedule of the district since the last hearing. It was made public at the last hearing when all of those extremely active people were here. And I think that the comments that you're making about people might forget, I think that also shows that this is working. Because if you're able to go home, what we heard last time was they could not forget the facility was right next door to them. Because according to the complaints and the NOVs, it was very invasive of dust, from dust. The fact that if you could forget it, that would mean, that would go along with the evidence of no complaints since the last time, no NOVs since the last hearing, in showing that I think that is the reason why people are not here today.
Well, I bunged up my toe 2 Sundays ago, and my toe hurt an awful lot, and I got part of my nail peeled off. And I'm walking around with an open-toed shoe right now. It doesn't bother me now, but I still have it. It just doesn't hurt as much. And what I want to be reminded, and this is the argument by a very imperfect analogy, somehow just announcing it here and in some, I don't know if it's announced on the website, that we're having this hearing. I think it would be very important that there's some better way of reminding people that we are still looking at it, that they are still complying, because we're going to have a final hearing in 6 months. Is that correct?
We are not. We have jurisdiction.
Excuse me, jurisdiction.
You could say you want a hearing. I don't see any reason.
No,
We could discuss
We have
that.
jurisdiction for 6 months. I don't know if we're going to have a hearing about that, but I thought in my own mind that since the jurisdiction was ending, we might have another meeting, but apparently that's something that I'm not aware of, that we don't have to have another meeting if the jurisdiction ends. Is that correct?
That is correct. We would have to set a status conference if we would like one. Or the parties would have to determine that an issue is raised and then petition to have a hearing.
Okay, what I said is the horse is out of the barn, so it was this hearing that I wish was noticed in a somewhat more public way. But because really we're doing this for everybody, meaning the public and ourselves. Anyway, that was my point. Sorry.
Not to beat that horse, but in your analogy of your toe not hurting so much, but it's still there. If the facility is still there, but it's not hurting the public, then it's no longer a public nuisance. And again, I think that's further evident.
In this sense, I'm probably the public nuisance at this point. Thank you.
Senator, did you want to continue?
Just to reiterate what Dr. Leonard has stated about public notice, somewhere along the line, we have to have a verification that public notice has been given, not just announcing it back in April. I think that they were well notified last time, and that's why they're here. I mean, exactly, no one is here. Then my concern is the signs that are posted. I assume that they've been properly posted and that way giving notice to the people in the area. If they have a complaint, they can call.
The clerk is going to hand me the public notice that was given. Thank you.
If the manager of the facility, of course, off today as he was in April, we testified.
As is always the case,
I'm not making a statement, I'm just.
Oh, sorry.
It's like, once again, I give a foundation. Thank you very much. And it turns out that, based on recollection, that the plant facility manager was not there, testified, if I recall, there all day during the operating hours, that there was another plant, unless I stand corrected, in the valley that you're also responsible for. That's why I raised the question, but you clarified it today, that there's no such plant that security is responsible for anywhere in this region. And therefore, what I recall may not be accurate. And I will say that based on your response to the question that I raised. And having said that, if meeting all the requirements, proper notice has been given, if there's no complaints, no one here today, well, I guess we can assume that the community is satisfied that conditions have been met and they don't have the same kind of problem and at the same level that they had 6-7 months ago. So there's no further action need to be taken. I concur with that decision.
Thank you. Just for the record, thank you, Madam Clerk, has handed to me the notice, and as in all of our matters, the clerk's office has properly followed all notice requirements for this hearing as they do for all hearings. And so I have that, and that is part of the permanent record, which is available to the public on the district's website. And in addition, this particular hearing was set back in April, and those who were most active and came to testify were there. So, for the record, notice was appropriate. Any other comments? No, seeing none, then I think the board is in agreement that we will take no action today based on how well the testimony that we received today on how well this dust control plan and the order is working, and we will retain jurisdiction as is already in the order through April of 2018 unless anything should happen and the parties should ask and petition this board to be heard. And thank you very much for the presentation today and for the good work of Security Paving. Anything else, board members, for today? Then we are adjourned for the day. Thank you all.